And Mayor John Tory looking for some tighter restrictions to control the spread of COVID-19. And it sounds like Premier Doug Ford has been listening closely.
I just got off the phone again, talked to him frequently, Mayor Tory, along with their chief medical officers as well. And I'll always follow the guidelines of the health and the science. And when they ask something to be done, we're usually 99.9% of the time, we're all on the same page.
Yesterday, Mayor Tory said he would like to see a reduction in the social gathering limits, enhanced restrictions on existing limits, and an expansion on the mandatory mask requirements. So who better to ask about all of this than Mayor John Tory, joining me live to discuss all the latest developments in the battle against COVID-19. Good morning, Mayor. How are you today?
Morning. I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Listen, I'm great, but the real sense is right now that something is going to change. What can we expect? Give us a preview.
Well, I think you can expect exactly what you said and what we asked for, and I commend the Premier for the fact he's been very responsive to people like us who have seen a spike up in these cases. We've seen a spike up that seems to be attributable, although there's no kind of blanket conclusion you can reach, to social gatherings in different places. People often want to sort of narrow it down to restaurants and bars or whatever, but we've seen weddings, we've seen parties, we've seen restaurants, we've seen bars, we've seen buses, we've seen beaches. And so what we want to see is a tighter restrictions on the social gatherings, because it seems that people either have different interpretations of what they're supposed to be doing in terms of how many people they can have indoors and outdoors, or they just flout the law. So that's why we also want to see increased penalties. And we want to see, a greater effort made at enforcement, and that probably is going to fall back on us in terms of our bylaw people. And the good news on that is that a lot of the people we had on beaches and in parks and so on, where there were problems earlier when the weather was better, are now going to be, available to be reassigned to different things that may relate to the indoors. So that's what we want to see, and it sounds like that's what we're going to get. But I guess we'll have to see when the announcement comes.
Now, we're hearing that we could expect a more of a surgical approach to COVID restrictions. What does that mean for Toronto? How could what's happening here be different than places outside the GTHA?
Well, there are places in the province, many places where they're just not having any new cases, or, maybe they're having one. But we have a problem here with a trend line. Our medical officer of health told us yesterday that, the trend line is very concerning. And if you kind of extrapolate those numbers out through, the winter, you could end up with a problem as serious as we had last spring if you just project forward. And so we're looking for the ability of Toronto. And I think the GTA mayors have been meeting. I convene meetings of that group pretty well every Monday. And I think they all agreed on the same thing, that we need to have some tighter restrictions on these gatherings, because it's been these kind of backyard parties, indoor parties, weddings, and so on that have led to a lot of the problems, and that we need to have some tougher penalties. And then it comes up to us with the provincial and federal people all together to enforce those laws. But really, we couldn't possibly have enough people to go around every single party that might be held in every basement around Toronto. So it really, comes back to people and their own sense of personal responsibility for saying, look, I mean, if I don't follow these tighter rules, then I'm going to be putting my neighbors, myself, my family at risk, and I'm putting the whole city at risk in the context of going back to a kind of lockdown that none of us want to go back to. And there's not any suggestion of that at this moment, simply because it's a targeted thing, as you said, not a blanket thing where we just say, well, let's close everything down and hope for the best.
But I'm wondering if a complication with that might be that it's tougher to get the message across. If all of these different regions have different rules going on at the same time, how are you going to make sure that we know what we should be doing where we are at any given time?
Well, I don't really buy into that. I mean, if you live in sort of Barrie, let's say, and it's in a different part of the province than Toronto, and the rules are slightly different, the bottom line is that the basic health rules are the same. Keep away from crowds, keep your distance from other people, wear your face covering, wash your hands. That's the advice that's been offered since the beginning of all this to people. And if people just follow that alone without worrying about whether they should have 10 people or 15 people or 20 people at their party, in fact, if they sort of maybe gave a rethink to having a party altogether just now, that's what we want. And so I don't think the advice is any different in Barrie or in Peterborough than it is really in Toronto at its core. And in Toronto, if these restrictions come through, I suspect it's going to be for the whole of the GTA. So you're talking about 6 million people. Most of the people that are going to watch BT will be within those rules, which will have a smaller number of people for indoor and outdoor parties, and the same rules about hand washing and distance. And then the only thing we may have to act on, because the province has been less involved in this area, shall we say, is masking, because I really believe that the more often we can have more people wearing the mask in more places, the better off we're going to be, just as one tool to really a fight against the spread of the virus.
Now we keep hearing that masks are such a big tool. Any chance that you might hand them out for free to us?
Well, no, again, I don't think that's the answer. The answer is not that people don't have one. If you look at the TTC where we have mandatory masks, we're getting 95% compliance. People have masks. We did give some away at the very beginning to help people get there. The issue is people take it on and take it off. And I believe, as I said, I think the more often in more places that more people can wear the mask for more of the time, the better. And so that means we're going to have to take a look, if the province doesn't, at the workplaces and other places like that, so that we really have it as almost a default position that you have a mask on pretty much all the time, as opposed to having it on here and having it on there. People just really have to get used to it, as I think they're doing. And most people are doing this anyway. I find myself, for example, go into a store, have the mask on, get back in my car, and I leave it on. I forget to take it off, even though I can. So I just think a lot of people are probably that way, and it's not comfortable. It's not the best, but we just have to do it in order to get rid of this thing, and then we can take these masks and put them in a museum.
Hey, we've seen those long lineups outside of testing centers. What's your reaction when you see people lining up for hours when it goes around the block?
Unacceptable. And I think the Premier has said the same thing. So while it's his responsibility, I'm not going to sort of say, launch any kind of missiles at him or at the government. They've said it's not acceptable. They're doing things to make it better by, for example, trying to, I think, recruit the pharmacies to be a place where people without symptoms could go for a test. But, I've talked to people myself who told me they were just not going to go and stand in a lineup for 4 hours to get tested because they didn't really have to do it. They thought they were supposed to do it. And that's not a good thing. When you have people sort of passing by the hospital, seeing a big lineup and saying, I won't bother, when they might have had a sniffle or, a bit of a cough, and that's when they should go. And so this is not acceptable. And I think everybody knows it's not acceptable. And now the key is how fast can we do something about it? We've got to ramp up the capacity, ramp up the lab capacity so the tests can come faster, the results rather. And I think they're at work on that. But that really has to be a top priority.
All right, we've covered COVID. Something else I wanted to touch on. Your GQ-style photo spreads you've shared online wearing your Raptors jacket during the last stretch of their play. What do you do with that jacket during the off season?
Well, last year, as a result of great public clamor, I sent it to the cleaners, but I had planned on doing that anyway, and so it'll go to the cleaners again this year. It didn't get as much use, unfortunately, and then we have to really reconsider about the jacket, because it went 3-2 in the playoffs, but 3-2 is not what we needed to get where we needed to go, and so we have to sort of. What I did last time was a public consultation where I asked people, do you think we should kind of retire the jacket? The Toronto Archives, believe it or not, have asked for it.
Get out.
Because of the playoff run and the championship run last year. They wanted the original jacket. I mean, because there were some pretenders, including at BT, who had the jacket, a copy of the jacket, but it was not the jacket. These were mere pretenders. And I was happy they should join in. But there's only one jacket.
I am offended.
So it may go to.
I have my own one-of-a-kind unique
Mayor Tory.
jacket, Mayor Tory. And
I
guess
would never want to call you a pretender because you're, that's not what you are. But
listen, Mayor Tory, I thought we were friends. First of all, none of our jackets worked. None of them helped them, did it? Maybe we should both get rid of both of our jackets. Second of all, I'm not a pretender. I'm a defender of all things Kawhi.
Oh, no.
Yesterday we got into it.
Need your thoughts on
was
this,
mocking
Mayor.
Kawhi, saying how fun and wonderful it was for Raptors fans that he got kicked out with the Clippers.
I put a tweet out, Mayor, and it was a sleeping baby with a smile on its face, and I said, Raptors fans going to bed tonight knowing that Kawhi got eliminated.
And then you sent another one in the morning.
Right?
Okay, but let's just face it. Well, let's just deal with facts here, okay? The facts are that if he was the one-man show that made the Raptors the champions last year, which I would argue he was not, and we saw how great they were this year, even though they didn't make it all the way. If he was the one-man show, then the Clippers would be advanced to the next round now. They're not. Therefore, good for him. Nice fellow. He did a great thing for us, but I was one of those people that kind of had a bit of a smile because everybody said he was the one-man show that gave us the championship.
Thank you, Mayor.
All aboard the bitter bus.
Yeah.
Mayor Tory, I thought we were friends. What is happening today? I, too, said it takes the team. I do say his stoic leadership is what made them stronger and made their game stronger this year without him. At the same time, I will always have a place in my heart for Kawhi and wish him well. So I don't know
so
why
I,
we're
but,
relishing in his loss when he is
We're
a
not
huge part of the
relishing.
reason
We're just commenting on a fact,
had
which
the
is that it was not a
championship.
one-man show last year. Just
Commenting
a fact,
on a
Dean.
fact.
It's not. We're not relishing.
Oh, Mayor
anything.
Tory, I'm so sorry. We've run out of
relish
time.
is for hamburgers.
Yeah, exactly. Mayor,
This chat
I
doesn't
appreciate
cut
it.
the
I get
mustard.
it.
Okay, so we'll catch up with you later. How's that?
Okay.
Good to see you, Mayor.
I'm gonna go grab my jacket. I'll see you out in the street.
Nice shoe,
Melissa
too, by
Duggan,
the
we're
way.
so sorry. We just ambushed the interview. What did he just say?
Nice shoe, by the
Okay,
way.
so now we're making fun of my shoes. You did not. Mayor Tory, are you even wearing pants? Are you wearing shoes?
Talk about my jacket and the fashion trend. I mean, there's a new fashion trend. One shoe with a strap and one shoe without a strap. It's a whole new thing.
Yes,
we
I
got to call Kawhi up. We got to call Kawhi up and make sure that he's got those for his family.
You know what? Wow. You know, I do have some
Tory's on
issues, and they are
flames.
not my shoes this morning. Mayor Tory, I'll see you later in front of the new Toronto sign. How's that going? Is that going well?
No, it's going well. Yes, it's almost. If you looked out, you would know. You'd think it was my
happening?
window here. You'd think it was fully installed. It's just not. The electronics are not hooked up yet, and we're going to open it
Nice.
up real soon.
Okay,
wait.
that's good. And how seriously, how are
there it
your
is.
eyes doing? Are your eyes doing well?
You know
Are you
what?
healing?
Anybody out there who has to have cataract surgery,
Yeah.
I've now had both eyes done, and it's unbelievable how the technology has it done quickly. And I was back working the same day, really, but my eyesight is now much better, and so it's all good. Thank you for asking.
Okay,
That's
good.
awesome.
I'm glad you're doing well. Even though I don't agree with everything you said today, I still love you, Mayor Tory, okay? We'll check in with you in a
Thank you,
little
Dean.
bit.
It's good to hear. Thank you.
Yeah, okay. I'm going to go grab my strap and fix my shoes at some point today just for you.
This is the best.
This is
Mayor
horrible.
Tory,
This
thank
went
you.
all wrong. I thought he was
Yeah.
going to be on my side.
No, he's a real sports fan.
All right.
He understands.
All right.
It's not fair weather.
That's done. We're out of
That's it.
time.
Mayor Tory, thank you.
I am a fair weather sports fan. Yes, I am. But when I'm there, I'm there.